Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to The Well, your source for the latest in the field of after school and summer learning programs. Today we have Regino Chavez. He is from LA's Best. Hey, what's up, Regino?
Good morning, Bruno. Good to see you.
Good
How are
morning.
you?
And we are 7 in the morning, bright and early, having this conversation. Such an important topic. So I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Let me ask you the first question is, how did you get started in the field of expanded learning?
Oh my God, that takes me back many, many years. I originally started with after school um, when I was very good friends with a dear friend of mine who ended up founding the STAR program here in Los Angeles. We were very concerned about all these kids who were at that time latchkey kids and had nowhere to go.
Right.
So, with the STAR people, I became involved in forming their after school program, and then I got on the board of directors for them and have continued in the field ever since.
And what year was this?
Oh my God, you're really asking me to stretch back. This must have been, well, my daughter was my daughter, who is now older and married and has two children, my two grandkids that I love dearly, was maybe in elementary school.
Wow.
Uh, so this was maybe in the 70s, I want to say.
Yeah, yeah. Because people think, that after school programs started in 2006 with the passing of ACEs or
Oh
after
no,
school education and safety. But we were doing this way before all of that was happening. We just took it to
many years
scale.
ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so the second question that I want to ask you that people always tend to stop me and say, okay, so I'm a site coordinator. Can I really make this a career? What would you say to them?
We have in LA Best people who have been with us for 30 years, or ever since the founding of the organization. So you can definitely make it a career. What you need to make sure of is that your passion is in this work.
Hmm.
Okay, first and foremost, your passion needs to be there. You need to be really committed to the development of these children. And then find your pathway or create your pathway within your organization. That's really, really important. But it's up to you. Uh, if there is nothing that looks like a pathway, talk to your bosses.
Right.
Figure out how can we create this so that people like me who want to stay in this field, who are deeply committed and have the passion, can move up and spread the word and shape this program the way it needs to be shaped.
Yeah, definitely. And you take care of the evaluation pieces for the program, and so you get to always get to see the big picture of the impact that these programs can have. So obviously, LA's Best right now, over 190 programs serving over 25,000 young people each and every day. What would you say to a site coordinator who sees perhaps the 100 kids that they work with, or they see the potential that the impact that it can have on one, but you get to see the impact that it can have in entire communities? What is that impact like from where you sit?
That impact is at multiple levels. You not only get to shape children's minds, you not only get to develop their critical thinking skills, you not only give them the idea of you can be anything you want. And I'm going to provide you with activities that help you learn what's available out there.
Right.
You don't have to just settle for what you think you have to settle. You
Mm-hmm.
can shape your own life. So at the micro level with the students, you can do that. At the level with the staff, if you are training and developing your staff, even if they leave the program, because many of our staff are part-time,
Right.
even if they leave the program, they take away your philosophy and your view of
Right.
how this should work and what it should be like. So you're impacting that greater level. You're helping the parents. Many of these are working parents. They cannot work
Mm-hmm.
unless they have a safe and secure environment for their children to be in, and they don't have to worry about it. So that's another impact. And finally, if you're hiring from that community, you are doing economic development. Okay. So there's impacts at so many levels. So not just your micro, that one child. Yeah, you are influencing that one child, but you're also influencing the child who's listening to you at that point in time, the staff member who's listening to you and watching you model what you're doing. So it just goes on. There's such a multiplier effect.
Yeah, and I think about the work that you have done in the past in other countries, right? And how we can take all of that experience and bring it to the community, which is the greater Los Angeles area, or inner city Los Angeles, where there's a huge Latino population that essentially a lot of it is cultural, a lot of it is intergenerational, a lot of it is breaking cycles or creating new ways of thinking for that community. And so, what has been your experience like specifically with the Latino population of the impact that these programs can have on them?
Well, Bruno, there's one thing about LA's best, and that's this whole resiliency outlook that we have. We don't see our communities as deficits, as having nothing but, all these bad things around it. There are still libraries there. There are still parents who play the guitar. There are still parents who may have been doctors or teachers in their home countries. Here, they're relegated to other jobs, but nonetheless, they have knowledge and skills. So we tap into that. We invite them to come into our program. We invite them to, hey, take a look at what we have, figure out how we can use you to support the programming that we do. We also recruit from the community.
Mm-hmm.
Very committed to doing that. Most of our staff reflect the ethnicity of the children we serve. Um, so in that way, we tap into the resources that each one of those different communities, because LA is a massive place, but there's little small towns, small villages within Los Angeles,
Oh,
and
yes.
we tap into those resources that each one of those villages brings with them.
There's a lot of neighborhoods that are extremely unique within the larger scope of that neighborhood of that city. And I always make the joke that you can tell that I'm from Northern California because when I have to travel down south, people tell me, "Hey, where are you going?" And I tell them I'm going to LA, and then they say, what part of LA?" No, I don't know. I'm just going to LA, right? So that's how you know you're just visiting, not part of that community, right? If you don't know the neighborhood, if you don't know the street name, if you don't know that community very well, and you just say, "I'm going to LA," you know you're not deeply involved in that community.
Absolutely. And the beauty of hiring from the community is that those staff members know what's going on. They know and are able to keep the children safe because if they hear something that might be a dangerous situation, they know how to act and
Right.
they know when to act and they know how to move that information. So, it's a great resource.
Yeah, which brings me to my next point, Regino, that I'm really interested in talking to you about is this idea of somebody like me who sits in a cubicle in Sacramento and sits down with good intentions and a good heart to write down best practices for the young people that we serve without perhaps ever stepping foot into Boyle Heights, stepping foot into those communities. And we try to create a best practice that's best for everyone based on our perception rather than a best practice that's best for that child that we serve. So what is your take on these idea of creating best practices?
I think it's important to share our learnings, to share our practices. Calling them best, that's a little borderline for me. Why? Because just like you mentioned, it's best for you under selected circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I can take a look and I can use them as guides for what I'm going to do and my work, but I also have to adapt them. I have to refine them for my circumstances, my context. My children may be different from the ones that you serve.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I tweak it? How do I refine it? I can't let my creativity go. I can take your work and use my creativity to make it applicable to my setting and my context.
Yeah.
But I just cannot give away my power and say, you know what, I'm just going to take this and replicate it. That's
Mm-hmm.
not going to work.
Yeah,
It is not.
and with My Brother's Keeper, this journey has been interesting for me and our collaborative and the work that we're doing because there's a lot of movements out there where somebody comes from outside of the community to a community and says, "We have the answer for you. We can fix this, or we can fix you," even worse, right? Instead of asking the
Absolutely.
community, what is going on here? How can we help you? What do you need? And so this idea that somebody can come in from the outside that's not part of the community and just give an answer to something that they may not really know about. So
Mhm.
what are you doing as a program to really address or keep your ear open to what the community really needs?
Two primary things. Actually, there's three. One is we do hire from the community. So the folks that we have on our staff really know what their living situation is there and what the needs are for that community. One. Two, we have begun implementing planning with youth in LA's Best. We have been really diligent about doing that for the last year. And well, we're doing it differently this time. We would poll children and we would look at what t-shirts they might be wearing. That tells you what they're interested in.
Yeah.
So gauging student interest, gauging what they want to do, and also just listening to them and listening to the problems that they bring to the setting gives you a pretty good idea of what they're going through and how you need to adjust and develop activities that help them um, navigate or manage those troubling times or troubling episodes in their lives. For example, but we also do stuff beyond that. Parent surveys, for example.
Right.
Parent surveys really tap into what is it that the parents want for their children. So that's another source of information for us. When we look at what the kids are going through, when we identify certain themes, then we do develop programming around that. We have, for example, the Art of Peace Club that we do with both boys and girls in LA's Best. The Art of Peace Club is basically designed to help children learn strategies for self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I'm feeling? Okay. Let's identify what it is I'm feeling. Why did I react? Why did I hit this child? Okay. What was I feeling? And then supporting that with strategies for how to better manage that feeling, that emotional response. You don't need to lash out and hit that child. You
Right.
know what? You can go over to the peace place and talk it out. And let's figure out how we can support you in developing the language for talking it out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have Connecting for Success, also designed to help them identify what am I feeling? What am I doing? But in addition, how does what I'm feeling connect to what's going on in the community? So getting a greater perspective on, is it just me or is it something out there that's also doing something and causing me to feel this way? And then how can I engage in my community
Mm-hmm.
to improve those things? Okay. Um, it could be as simple as, okay, you know what? We need to clean our school campus. Or let's figure out, is there a nursing home out here for adults?
Mm-hmm.
How do we connect with them? And how do we write letters to them and let them know, you know what, you're important to us.
Yeah.
You're an important member of our community. So we have those kinds of programs. Um, and I could cite others, but
Sure, and how to make it relevant for them, right? Speaking to young people in LA County, some of them have never visited the beach, which
yeah,
may be so close to them, less than a couple of miles away, and they have never gotten that opportunity. And so, one of the things that when we talk about this process of creating change is, I think about what you mentioned, youth voice and leadership, which is now front and center because of these quality standards for expanded learning programs, but I remember the time where youth voice and leadership meant um, having a sixth grade, you remember those sixth grade leadership councils. And
yeah,
I would go to sites and ask, why only sixth graders? Why
hmm
not everyone? Why couldn't a second grader give input to their program? And now we're developing a more sophisticated way to look at youth voice and leadership where it doesn't happen at an event like a council, but it happens every
right.
day throughout programming.
Every day. Absolutely. But you really need to sensitize staff to where are those moments that you can pull in, or how do you strategically develop your activity plan to say, okay, at this point, I'm going to ask for someone to facilitate this part of the activity. At this point, I'm going to have someone model
Yeah.
what this needs to do. I don't have to do it,
Right.
but I can appoint someone, I can ask someone to do it, and in that way get others to realize, you know what, I could be one of the ones that goes up there and models.
Right.
Give them the choice
Right.
and let them exercise one, choice, and two, leadership.
Yeah. So,
So,
Regino, as an evaluator, one of the things that I have found throughout my entire 20-year career in after school is that people always blame me for being what they call a program person. Bruno, you're just a program person. So some of us have to be grant writers, some of us have to be evaluators, some of us have to be program people. What would you say to the site coordinator out there who gets told all the time, you're just a program person, when the reality is we need all voices at the table to have a real conversation about what that community needs?
well, you know what? It's a misunderstanding of the role of the site coordinator, just calling them a program person, because they have to deal with budgets,
Mm-hmm.
they have to deal with staff and develop staff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If somebody's calling you a programmer, take it with pride. Without programming, really nothing can change.
Yep.
If you're not providing the type of programming that leads to developing that resiliency in the child, uh, you're really not hitting your mark.
Mm-hmm.
So being called a programmer, first, it's a misunderstanding of the role of the site coordinator. And two, you know what? It's a very, very important role. Without programming, nothing happens.
And I think about all the people involved in after school. Obviously, the most important piece is the young people and their families. Then we have our line staff, site coordinators, administrators, school people, and others. And I always say that the most important person besides the young people and the families are those who have access to them on a daily basis. Right.
Mhm.
And that, for me, the heart and soul of any program is the site coordinator and the people that work at the site, because they have access and the opportunity to create change every day. So, as
Mhm.
it relates to our collaborative, because we created this MBK Collaborative, we were all at the table for a couple of years having these discussions. What would you say the importance of this work to just even continue the conversations amongst ourselves, to brainstorm ideas and to push this envelope and this topic forward? What has been your experience like with My Brother's Keeper and the work that we're doing either locally or statewide?
It's been a very positive experience for me because I've felt for so many years that there's been an ignorance of our needs for many of our communities. We talk about it in terms of global at a very global level, but I think our work in the MBK groups has been making these global issues very concrete for our specific communities.
Mm-hmm.
So while Washington, D.C. may have these needs and they look kind of the ones like LA has, and they may look like the kind that maybe Irvine or Sacramento or Fresno has, how they shape out and how they play out locally are different. And
Yeah.
being able to have this collaborative that we have, talk about it, figure out, okay, so there's this need in Fresno, and it plays out this way. How can I understand it so that I can make whatever I'm working on much more positive and much more impactful here in Los Angeles? Sharing ideas, knowing that somebody's got your back, because that's really important.
Yeah.
You're not being denigrated, you're not being put down, your idea isn't being just discarded because you're not among the thinkers or among this other group that helps shape policy. It's really, really important because we have been shaping policy through this group. We
Mm-hmm.
have been shaping
We
policy,
have. We have.
and that's very exciting.
Yeah, we continue to push the envelope. One of the things that was important to me when we were starting the idea of creating this YouTube channel or the well was, does it have to be on video? Can it be a podcast? Can it be something different? Can it be a webinar? And what was important to me, and now we have data to back it up, is that back then when we made these decisions, I didn't really realize that 88.5% of the students that we serve are people of color,
Mhm.
and that 70% of the students that we serve are Latino. So
Yeah.
even having two Latino men having this discussion right now on video says a lot to our folks out in the field who may be looking at this video and saying, can I visualize the next level? Can I be Regino in 20 years? Can I do that, right? Can I shape policy? And seeing the image of a strong Latina or Latino leading the way and having these conversations can be a very powerful thing for our communities, because we don't see a lot of positive images out there of these strong men and women of color who are leading either policy or initiatives or programs or anything else. So what would you say to, now you have a cadre basically of young people who grew up at LA's best,
Hmm.
and I use that term with a lot of respect,
Hmm.
and are now perhaps in their 30s and their 40s, and they started their careers at LA's best. What is your hope for the field of expanded learning as we develop now generations of people that go through our programs and now go back to their communities and hopefully build them up themselves?
You know what? I take a lot of pride in our work. Whenever I run into a person that has left LA's best, they always talk about the values that they learned, and the values that they now carry into this new setting.
Mm-hmm.
So this work that we're doing, it lives on. It lives on, and we should be proud of that. We should just know that we are changing the world little by little.
Yep.
You know, it's not revolutionary in the traditional sense of a revolution, but it's, that little drop here, that little drop there, that ripples and continues to just have impact on that lake, this
Yep.
lake that we call the world. So yeah, it's important work, and it continues, it lives on.
Yeah, 3 years when we had that initial conversation at the Boost conference about what MBK could be, I never thought that we would be sitting, not only sitting at the table, but helping to shape the agenda of what gets talked about at the table. And so I'm very proud of what we have accomplished. And it really takes people like you and the rest of the collaborative members to come together to put their pride aside. Um, and say what is best for our young people in our communities, and not necessarily what is best for the position that I hold at this moment or what my ideas are. The last story that I want to share is something that hit home when you were talking earlier about communities that really need to understand that when my father came to this country many years ago, he was a computer engineer back at home in Peru. He did that for 20 years. And when he came here, because of the language barrier, he had to deliver newspapers. And we deliver newspapers for 20 years. And it was something that we had to do to support our family and the dream that we had for our goal. And I'm very proud of that, because that literally shaped who I am as a person today. It taught me about humility. It taught me about service. It taught me about putting people first. And I wouldn't take it back for a single second. Regino, thank you so much for your time. What is one resource that you currently use, either a book, something that has helped you in your career, or that you're using right now that helps you on your everyday life?
You know, I'm on this kick about transformative leadership.
Mm.
So I have been reading a lot around this topic. I really want to move this in LA's best, helping shape our site coordinators, our traveling staff, and even our department heads into becoming transformative leaders, and which leads to a transformative culture within LA's best. So I've been reading. Mastering Leadership is something that I read about 2 weeks ago, and it's just has been sitting here, and I'm just going spinning the wheels, going, okay, so how do I move this?
Right.
What is it that I have to do with this information?
Yep.
Um, I haven't identified it yet, but I know I'm going to do something with it. you
Right.
know,
So, there's a saying that leaders are readers, right? And one of the things that I've been pulling from these interviews and the other conversations is, one, we have to get involved in what the thought leaders are thinking. So reading or social media is a good way to connect with our thought leaders out
Mhm.
there at the moment, right? Secondly, we have to take time to reflect, journal, or come up with how are we going to use this newfound information. And three, we have to keep our lines of communication open with pride aside so that we can have genuine conversations and sharing of ideas to help us move forward. And I think that if we do those three things, we
Mhm.
literally can change the world.
I think, you keep referring to this putting pride aside. I think one of the successes of the group that originally formed the MBK was the fact that everybody was there committed to the betterment of the community. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about enhancing me. It wasn't about, I can use this as a stepping stone to something else. It was a commitment to making the world better for our kids. And
Yes.
that's what attracted me to it, and that's why I've stayed in it.
Awesome. Regino, thank you so much for your time this early Friday morning. We appreciate all the work that you do down in Los Angeles and the rest of California. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Until next time.
You take care.